guys, we are making cheesecake. This is no bake, no sugar, low carb, and keto friendly crustless cheesecake. Although you can give it a crust, and I'm going to show you that too. But most importantly, it tastes sinful. And here we are, we're going to start out by making our sweetener powdered because I only have the granulated. I'm using this monk fruit sweetener and it's granulated, it's the classic. So I'm just going to throw it in my little coffee grinder and grind up enough to for this recipe and to have a little bit extra. My jar is empty, as you can see, so I just want to refill that jar, and I'm going to do that real quick. You can use, like I'm doing, a little coffee grinder. I like this because these things are so convenient. They're small, they're inexpensive, easy to clean out, you know. So anyway, you can use like your blender or your Ninja or, you know, whatever you have, or a bullet would work really well too. But anyway, like I said, this is how I'm doing it. But if you don't want to do this step, you really don't absolutely have to. You can use the sweetener just as it is, the granulated sweetener. You're just going to have a little bit of a texture. You might be able to feel a little gritty texture in your finished cheesecake. Honestly, I've done it that way before, and John and I really don't mind. But when you're doing it for a get-together, I just like to have a real nice, smooth consistency. So we're going to do it this way and take this extra step. Next, we're going to do some heavy whipping cream. I generally don't follow a recipe for this, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to measure this out, about 1.5 cups. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't even bother with that 1/2 cup. I just fill my cup up halfway. I figure why mess with it. But anyways, about 1.5 cups. You can use less, you can use more, however you want it to turn out in the end. If you use more, it's going to be a lot fluffier. If you use less, it's going to be a little bit firmer when you're done. So we're just going to take the hand mixer and mix this up. You can do it in a stand mixer, however it's more convenient for you. But we're just going to give this a nice mix until it's a nice firm whipped topping. This is about the consistency right here that I'm looking for. So I'll show you here in just a second. Nice and firm, just like that. That's what you want for this recipe. Okay, next we're going to set this aside and grab 2 8-ounce cream cheese. This is room temperature cream cheese. Just let it sit out for a couple hours or so. I probably let this sit out for 3 hours, 4 probably. But anyway, it's room temperature. And we're just going to give it a whip with the mixer real quick, just enough to kind of smooth it out a little bit. Now we're going to add 1 cup of that powdered sweetener. And I do like to usually measure the sweetener and put in about 1 cup, although you sweeten this to taste. If you want it sweeter, add more. If you don't want it as sweet, add less. And some vanilla. I do a couple teaspoons of vanilla, like 2 teaspoons. If I recall, I think the recipe called for 1, but I used 2. This is lemon juice. I used almost 3 tablespoons. 2.5 tablespoons, I suppose. It's just lemon juice from the bottle. You can fresh squeeze it if you want to, but I don't really mess around with that. So I just use the lemon juice from the bottle. And then we're going to go ahead back in with the mixer and mix it until it's nice and incorporated, nice and creamy. This is the point where you want to do a little taste test. Give it a little taste. If you think it needs a little more sweetener or vanilla or lemon juice, whatever, if you think it needs it, this is the time to go ahead and add it. So if I were making this just for John and I would probably leave it like this. But since it's for a get together, I'm going to go ahead and add more sweetener. It could use a little bit more. But yeah, just add a little bit more if you think it needs it, and mix it again, get it incorporated real good. And now we're going to ditch that mixer and we're going to go with a spatula, a rubber scraper, whatever you want to call it. Get that whipped topping into your cream cheese mixture. And you don't want to mix this like with the mixer, or you don't want to stir it real hard, because then you're going to break down that whipped topping and it's going to get kind of runny. It's going to get a weird consistency to it. So just to keep it nice and fluffy and creamy, we're going to go ahead and just fold that whipped topping in just like this and get it just so it's mixed in. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to mix it in for until it's completely incorporated if you don't want to, but just till it's nice and mixed in, I guess. You can go ahead and give it a little taste right here, just in case that whipped topping made it so it's not sweet enough. You could add a little more sweetener and fold that in real quick at this point, but I'm not going to. I think it's fine. Now we're going to move on to the crumb topping. I'm going to use butter, almond flour, and some sweetener, and that's all I'm going to use for it. I'm going to use a half a stick of butter, and I'm going to tell you right now that that's way too much. So you only need about a fourth of a stick of butter, but you'll see what I mean here coming up. I don't know what I was thinking using the entire half stick, but it turns out okay in the end. So anyway, there, stop right about there. Stop right there. So, okay, we're going to go ahead and melt this half stick of butter. While that's melting, we're going to grab this almond flour and we're going to throw some in the bowl. Mine looks all clumpy like this, the big clumps, because I store it in the freezer to keep it nice and fresh. You don't need to sift it or anything. It's just, it'll be fine just like this. I'm just going to throw some in. And again, I really don't know what I'm thinking, but I'm using way too much for a crumb topping. So anyways, I'm just going for it. Break up the clumps a little bit with the back of your spoon, no big deal. Add a little bit of your sweetener to this, and it can be granulated. So I'm just going to use the granulated for the crumb topping. That'll be fine for this. And I'm going to pour in just some. Well, there's a little piece of a almond that didn't, a little piece of almond skin. I didn't want a brown speck in it. So anyways, I should have measured this. I apologize I didn't measure it, but I just poured in some sweetener. And next we're going to grab that melted butter. And this is the point where I'm realizing this is way too much butter. But, you know, I go ahead and use it anyway for whatever reason. I could have just used half of it and I probably would have been, I know I would have been fine. So anyway, pour in the butter and give it a mix. Not a super good mix. I can't find my words. I apologize, but you see me adding more sweetener without even giving it a taste because I can see already that that's way too much butter for this almond flour. So I'm going to throw in some more almond flour. Using my hands, keeping it real. What can I say? I use my hands a lot when I cook. So anyways, there's that. Get that all mixed in. Just a rough mix, because remember, you're making a crumb topping. So here I'm going to give it just a little pinch of a taste right there, just to see if it needs a little bit more sweetener. And I know it doesn't need any more butter, I can tell you that right now. But I do think it needs just a little bit more sweetener, so dump a little bit in, or maybe kind of a lot in. Oh my goodness. So mix that up, and let me just show you real quick. You can just press this, and there's enough here to do it with. You can press this into the bottom of your pan and make this your crust really easily. I'm going to show you on the spoon here how easily it presses down, and it looks just like if you would want it for a crust. So yeah, but we're not doing a crust. And if I didn't already put my cheesecake into the pan that I'm going to be serving it in, I might just make this into a crusted cheesecake. Oh goodness. All right, so let's go ahead and grab that cheesecake out of the fridge. I've already put some berries on top, and just throw on the crumb topping. Just sprinkle it over top however much you want. And this is really something that just makes it look nice, I think. If I had some blueberries, I would have used some blueberries too, but we were all out, so that would have made it look really nice and festive for July 4th. But anyway, we don't have any, so we're just doing it like this, and I think this looks wonderful. And here's the extra crumb topping. I just put it in a bag, labeled it, dated it, and it's going to go into the freezer for next time I make this cheesecake. And that's actually enough to press down into that pan for a crust.